On the third day after my death, William received a call to identify the body. He casually embraced the woman in his arms and said, "If I'm dead, I'm dead. Just cremate me and find me later." My body was sent into the furnace, and after turning into ashes, the staff called William again. He clicked his tongue impatiently. "Got it, I'll be right there." By the time William arrived, it was already 2 hours later. His clothes were somewhat disheveled, with a glaring lipstick mark on the collar. It was clear that he had just come from the battlefield. Finding a staff member, he scoffed, "Where's Jessica's ashes? Wasn't I supposed to come pick them up?" After confirming his identity, the staff member handed him the box containing my ashes. William casually took it, his eyes filled with mockery. "Is this really Jessica's ashes? You wouldn't just throw in some random cat or dog to fool me, would you?" The staff was taken aback. "Mr. Sue, this is indeed Miss Jessica's ashes, it's on record. Would you like to see?" William smirked. "No need, I trust you." I breathed a sigh of relief. For some reason, although my body was dead, my soul still lingered. I thought about it and figured it might be because I hadn't been laid to rest. Now that William believed in my death, even if he hated me, he should still, out of past affection, take care to bury me, right? But before I could feel happy about it, the next moment, William suddenly exclaimed. The urn slipped from his hand, and my ashes scattered on the ground. William cruelly smiled and said, "Sorry, my hand slipped." As he spoke, he extended his foot, grinding the sole of his shoe recklessly into my ashes. I gasped, meeting his half-smiling, half-mocking gaze, opened my mouth, but no sound came out. It was only when my ashes were completely swallowed by the crevice, mingling with the dust, that William finally withdrew his foot with satisfaction. He laughed amidst the astonished shock of the staff, saying, "Make sure to tell Jessica that this trick was quite novel, but also a complete failure. In a few days, it will be my mother's death anniversary. She better obediently go to my mother's grave to atone, otherwise, even if she really dies, I wouldn't mind personally digging up her corpse to desecrate it." The last 2 words were filled with a chilling intent, sending shivers down one's spine. But I knew he could really do it. Suddenly, I was relieved that my body had already been cremated. Otherwise, that scene would have been hard to bear. Before the staff could even argue with him, William was called away by a phone call. Strangely, my soul followed him as well. I was reluctantly sitting in the passenger seat, listening to him chat with the woman on the other end of the line. That voice was familiar. It was Laura, the adopted daughter of the Sue family. When William and I were still in love, she had approached me, asking me to leave him. I refused, and she began to target me, spreading rumors in my company and having people corner me. After William found out, he gave her a severe lesson and threatened that if she dared to bully me again, he would kick her out. Only then did Laura become obedient. When I was mentioned, William's expression turned a bit colder. "Why bring her up? It's bad luck, and she's not really dead." "What if she really is dead? William, what would you do?" Laura's tentative voice came through. My heart tightened, and I instinctively turned to look at William. If it were the old William, he wouldn't be able to bear even the slightest injury to my hand, let alone my death. He said I was his treasure, that he would cherish me in the palm of his hand for a lifetime. But now, William coldly sneered, "Then I will definitely hold a banquet for 3 days and nights, and fill the city with fireworks to celebrate." I widened my eyes in disbelief, and it was only now that I understood how much William actually hated me. Hated me to the point that my death was something worth celebrating for him. "But William, I really am dead, you just don't believe it." The car stopped in front of a wedding dress shop, and William strode in with determination. He was so eager, just like the day we secretly registered our marriage, and he took me to the wedding dress shop. At that time, he couldn't wait to see me in a wedding dress. He excitedly held me in his arms and said I was the most beautiful bride in the world. But now, he looks at Laura in her wedding dress with the same tender gaze. He gently brushes a stray hair from her ear and softly says, "You look beautiful." Laura shyly lowered her head and smiled, and when she looked up again, her eyes were glistening with tears. William, I've finally waited for you. I was in shock, watching helplessly as Laura kissed William's face. I was desperate to stop all of this. But my hand passed right through William's body, and I stood there in a daze as I watched him slip the ring onto Laura's ring finger. How can this be? Why Laura? She is the one who caused his mother's death. William. I stood there with my mouth agape, my throat hoarse, filled with grief and anger. I numbly watched everything unfold. Laura excitedly looked in the mirror and suddenly asked, "By the way, William, she's okay, right?" We all knew who she referred to. William's expression was blank, even somewhat annoyed. What could possibly be wrong? Just a little trick. So, should we invite her to our wedding? William lowered his eyelashes, concealing the emotions in his eyes, and suddenly, a wicked smile curled at the corners of his mouth. Of course we should invite her, she is an important figure. I suddenly understood that William wanted me to witness his wedding in person. After all, this was the scene I had always longed for. Because we didn't wait for Sue's mother's consent back then, we only obtained a marriage certificate and didn't hold a wedding. Later, the wedding became my luxury. Because Sue's mother passed away from a heart attack, dying without treatment. The last call she made that night was to me. So, it was only natural for William to suspect that I had caused her death out of anger. On the day Sue's mother was buried, he forced me to kneel in front of the grave for a whole day and night. It rained heavily that day, and he and I locked eyes in the rain. His eyes were filled with despair and hatred. He said, "Jessica, from now on, we will not rest until one of us is dead." From that moment on, I went from being William's lover to becoming his enemy. He hated me, humiliated me, and wouldn't let me leave him. He even brought women home to spend the night. Seeing my red-rimmed eyes, he chuckled and patted my face, mocking, "Jessica, does it hurt? But this is all you're doing, who can you blame?" I tried to explain, but it only made William more relentless. He had no doubt about his conclusion because he knew that Mother Sue didn't like me. He even threatened that I would never be allowed to enter the Sue family's door in this lifetime. William had quarreled with her many times over this, even willing to sever ties with the Sue family, just to be with me. But the woman he loves caused the death of his own mother. How could he accept that? After sending Laura away, it was as if William had just remembered me. He mercifully pulled me out of his blacklist, one hand on the steering wheel and the other dialing my number. After a while, I watched as his relaxed brows gradually furrowed. I saw him slap the steering wheel in frustration. "Jessica, if you dare not answer my call, you're asking for trouble." But how could he know that I wasn't ignoring his calls? It was just that I could no longer answer them. Half a month later, William finally returned to our home. He violently pushed open the door, shouting, "Jessica, get out here." He pushed through one door after another, yet he could never find me. William's already gloomy face grew even darker. While ordering his men to find my whereabouts, he ominously said, "Jessica, if you're going to run, you better run far away. Otherwise, when I catch you, I will definitely break your legs." However, the woman he wanted to break the legs of was right in front of him. Soon, his subordinate sent a location. William's expression gradually became terrifying, and when I looked over in confusion, I realized it was Kevin's house. President William, the last call from the lady was to Mr. Kevin, but Mr. Kevin said he hadn't seen the lady. "We suspect he has kidnapped her." William said coldly, "Wait for me to get there." William sped all the way to Kevin's house. With a stern face, he kicked the tightly closed door. Once, twice, and on the third kick, the door opened. Kevin's face was calm, but there was a bruise under his eyes. "Is there something you need?" William sneered, "You've hidden my wife away, do you think I have nothing to say?" Kevin remained expressionless, as if he had lost all thoughts of this world. "I haven't hidden her, she's already dead." "Didn't the crematorium notify you to collect her ashes? She even asked you to help her act?" "Ha, it seems Jessica is determined to avoid me this time." William didn't believe I was dead, he stubbornly thought this was still my trick. He looked up at the room and shouted, "Jessica, don't think that with Kevin protecting you, you can escape my mother's memorial. I'll count to 3, and if you don't come out, don't blame me for being ruthless. 3, 2, 1. As the words fell, William suddenly kicked Kevin hard, instructing his subordinates to go inside and find me. Kevin was knocked to the ground, and a hint of anger appeared on his calm face. "William, Jessica is already dead, and you personally claimed her ashes. Have you forgotten? She's dead for several days now." Kevin angrily grabbed William by the collar and pinned him against the wall. William's expression darkened as he sneered, "At this point, you still want to hide her? Kevin, you really are deeply in love with her. It's just a pity that she was already worn out by me. Whenever I get tired of her, if you still like her, I might consider giving her back to you. But not now, she still has to kneel before my mother's grave to atone, she can't be with you anymore." Kevin's face turned red to his neck as he fiercely tugged at William's collar, gritting his teeth and saying, "William, you bastard." He suddenly punched William in the face, and William let out a muffled groan in pain. In an instant, the two of them were exchanging blows, grappling with each other. The old man used to say that after death, there is no feeling. But for some reason, I felt a tightness in my chest, as if it were about to explode. Although Kevin also worked out, William had trained before. After a few rounds, he was pinned to the ground by William, with several bruises appearing on his face. I was anxiously pacing, yet felt powerless. "Gee, look how pitiful you are, almost getting killed by me for Jessica, but she, on the other hand, is comfortably enjoying your protection. Is someone like this really worth your affection?" Kevin scoffed with a hint of mockery in his eyes. "William, the truly pitiful one is you. You're someone who can mistake your mother's murderer, someone who can harm the person they love. You live a life worse than that of a stray cat or dog." "What did you say?" William said coldly as he extended his fist. At that moment, a voice called out urgently, "President William, we found the surveillance footage of the accident involving your wife, and her autopsy report." William was stunned for a moment, and Kevin took advantage of the gap to punch him in the jaw. "Ugh." Kevin got up from the ground, looking down at the astonished William. He said coldly, "Now, take your people and get out of my house." William suddenly stood up, pushed Kevin aside, and rushed into the study. On the desk, there were numerous photos of me. In every one of them, without exception, I looked unrecognizable, some even to the point where my features were indistinguishable. I only glanced at them before turning away. I knew how terrible my appearance was in death, with one eyeball having fallen out of its socket and a large dent in my left temple. The forensic expert had a hard time identifying me back then. Yet, these photos were so brazenly displayed on the desk by Kevin. I couldn't help but feel that he must not be afraid of having nightmares. At that moment, those photos were in William's hands, as if he was desperately seeking something, determined not to miss even the slightest detail. A corner of the photo was creased due to his force. He listened to his subordinate's report, and in disbelief, shifted his gaze to the computer screen. On it was the video of my car accident. 2 cars collided head-on, and my car was almost instantly thrown out. The scene was shocking. William's eyes turned red in an instant, his hand gripping the mouse trembled, yet he stubbornly watched the video over and over again. "How could you know she had an accident?" William's voice was hoarse. Perhaps he was also puzzled as to why Kevin would know something he did not. Kevin sneered, "Did you not know? Her last call was to me. By then, she barely had the strength to speak, but she used her last bit of energy to tell me a secret." "What secret?" William asked, a bit anxious. Kevin, however, took his time. He enjoyed William's impatience, feeling irritated. "What secret?" William's eyes were bloodshot, staring at Kevin with a fierce intensity. Finally, Kevin put away his sarcasm and said expressionlessly, "She said that it was Laura who caused your mother's death." "Impossible." William almost instantly denied this secret. He shook his head and murmured, "It can't be Laura, my mom is so good to her." "Kevin, how dare you lie to me? Is this some trap you and Jessica set up?" You want to help her escape from me. Kevin, don't even think about it. Tell Jessica that for the rest of her life, even if she dies, she has to stay by my side. I lowered my eyelashes, suppressing the bitterness in my chest. It's okay, after all, I am already dead. As for whether William believes in that so-called truth, it no longer matters. He can no longer hurt me. I was forced to leave Kevin's house with William. As we left, I felt a strong gaze watching me. I turned back to search for that gaze, only to meet Kevin's eyes. His eyes suddenly turned red, and his lips trembled. Jessica. I was stunned for a few seconds, my eyes feeling warm. It wasn't until that silent Jessica appeared again that I finally confirmed, Kevin, he can see me. My nose felt sour, and I wanted to run to him, but my body was moving further away. I sat in the car, feeling the low pressure inside, my hands trembling with excitement. Kevin is my childhood friend, we grew up together and know quite a few secrets about each other. In college, I met William, and on the very first day of dating him, I couldn't wait to share this secret with Kevin. At that time, when Kevin heard that I was in a relationship, his first reaction was not happiness, but a complex look at me. Do you really like him? Not just playing around? I replied immediately, like, as in wanting to spend a lifetime with him. That day, Kevin, who usually talked a lot, surprisingly said little. Later on, he applied to study abroad, and William and I also faced pressure from our family's opposition. Unknowingly, my contact with him decreased. Until Sue's mother had an accident, William was left with only hatred for me, and Kevin returned from abroad. He asked me if I wanted to go with him. At that moment, his gaze was firm and urgent. But I couldn't put my mind at ease about the despondent William, so I rejected his good intentions. Kevin was frustrated with my lack of ambition and soon went abroad. That departure lasted 2 years. Gradually, I extinguished my love for him amidst William's resentment. I wanted to leave him. When Kevin found out, he flew back without a moment's hesitation. However, while I was going to light the last incense stick for Mother Sue, I heard Laura cursing and complaining in front of her tombstone. It was also then that I learned that on the night Mother Sue called me, Laura had gone to see her, hoping she would support her and William. After Sue's mother learned of Laura's intentions, she was so enraged that her heart condition flared up. Laura deliberately delayed by taking away her medication, which ultimately led to her untimely death. But just as I was excited to reveal the truth to William, I remembered that he had already blocked me. He said I was too malicious and didn't want to be associated with me at all. So, I could only go find him in person, but on my way to see him, I got into a car accident and died on the spot. Looking back now, I realize I was too self-indulgent. In his heart, Laura was pure and innocent. How could she possibly be the one who killed his mother? A sudden phone ring pulled me back to reality. The originally cold-faced William showed a complex expression when he saw the caller ID. William, tomorrow is Mom's death anniversary. Shall we go together? I'll come pick you up. Okay. Suddenly, she hesitated and asked, what about Jessica? Is she coming? William's expression darkened in an instant as he replied softly, she is already dead. After hanging up the phone, William suddenly turned his head. I followed him to the crematorium. Late at night, even as a ghost, I felt a sense of fear in this place. Yet, William seemed to be cut off from the outside world, banging on the crematorium door with urgency. Where are Jessica's ashes? Give them back to me. The staff member looked bewildered, having recognized him as the one who scattered Jessica's ashes. I'm sorry, Miss Jessica's ashes were blown away by the wind, and we couldn't recover them. He personally scattered my ashes, and even ground them carelessly. Now he comes looking for someone else's ashes. I have reasonable doubts that he wants to humiliate me once again. Perhaps he intends to bring my ashes before his mother and scatter them again. The atmospheric pressure around them dropped, and William grabbed the staff member by the collar, sternly saying, "How dare you lie to me?" There was no wind at that time. I'll give you 3 minutes to hand over Jessica's ashes. Over the past 2 years, William had completely transformed. He was ruthless in business, exuding a fierce aura. The staff member helplessly slumped against the wall, a trace of mockery flashing in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sue, but we indeed do not have Miss Jessica's ashes here. What was handed over to you was all of her ashes, and it was you who personally spilled them. If you continue to make a scene, we will have no choice but to call the police." William was taken aback, as if he had finally accepted that my ashes had been scattered by him. He let his hands fall in despair and stumbled away from the crematorium. I cast an apologetic glance at the affected staff and uncontrollably followed William. The night was thick tonight, and William's face was shrouded in darkness. Since leaving the crematorium, he had remained silent, the car cabin quiet as such. I clearly knew he couldn't see me, yet I still felt like I was sitting on pins and needles. Until the car engine died, William leaned back in his seat, his dark eyes quietly gazing at the dark window. He sat there all night, watching all night. The sky began to lighten with the first light of dawn. William, who hadn't slept all night, had dark circles under his eyes, and his eyelids were lined with red veins. I was surprised to touch his face, where there were a few tear stains. He had cried. Yet I was completely unaware. The moment my fingertips touched his face, it felt as if I had been burned, and I quickly withdrew my hand, trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, I smiled. The enemy was dead, and he wept with joy. It seemed reasonable enough. Today is the anniversary of Mother Sue's death. On this day for the past 2 years, William would always angrily drag me into the car. Then he would force me to kneel in front of Mother Sue's grave for a whole day and night. Just kneeling wasn't enough, I had to bow my head and apologize. By the end, I could barely stand up, my forehead covered in bright red blood. But William was happy, he believed this was what I deserved. He even said that after I die, I would go to the Avicii hell and never be reborn. Unexpectedly, his words came true. After I died, I couldn't even go to hell. This year, only William and Laura remained at Mother Sue's grave. Whenever I see Laura, I can't help but tremble. She is the enemy who killed William's mother, yet William patiently brushes aside the hair blown out of place from her forehead. Laura knelt before Sue's mother's grave, her face full of sorrow. "Mom, William and I have come to see you. By the way, Jessica is dead. You can rest easy now, knowing this." William bent down to wipe the dirt off Sue's mother's tombstone, his face calm. "Mom, let me tell you some good news. I am going to marry Laura. She is the one you watched grow up. You should be very happy about our wedding, right? As for Jessica, Mom, I regret it." The sky rumbled, dark clouds pressing down. But William's words of regret were clearer than the thunder, ringing in my ears. I followed William with hollow eyes, watching him tenderly open the car door for Laura and choose a wedding date for her. They were like a pair of celestial lovers, and my presence was merely a trial they had to endure. Now that the trial is over, they are destined to be together. The wedding I had been looking forward to, William provided for Laura just as well. The wedding dress, the rings, the invitations. He disregarded everything else, not caring about the company, completely immersed in the upcoming wedding with Laura. Fortunately, it seems I can finally leave William. He is dating Laura, and I no longer feel the urge to follow him. He is taking wedding photos with her, and I can just stay in the car, thousands of meters away from him. I tried not to stay by his side anymore. I tried to distance myself from him. To my surprise, I succeeded. I couldn't wait to escape. I ran far away, wandering the streets like a lost soul. "Jessica." I paused, lightly turning around. The night was thick, and Kevin stood under the streetlight, holding a dozen beers. When he saw me, his eyes lit up with excitement. "Jessica, it's really you." I almost forgot that Kevin can see me. He stood there cautiously, afraid that if he blinked, he would find only an illusion. I smiled and nodded. With a crash, the bottle shattered on the ground, and the wine splashed onto Kevin's pants. He cried out, arms wide open, but could only embrace the air. He was stunned for a moment, panic flashing in his eyes. Jessica, why? Why can't I feel your presence? Jessica. I smiled at him, unable to speak, but Kevin understood. He murmured, right, you are already dead. I followed Kevin back to his house. In his study, there was a stack of documents about the truth behind my and Sue's deaths. I only then learned that Kevin had been investigating that car accident ever since I died. And the mastermind behind that car accident was Laura. The news of Laura and William's upcoming wedding had long been all over the place. If I had known William was such a scoundrel, I shouldn't have let go back then. Well then, let me give them a grand gift at the wedding of this pair of dog men and women. On the day of William's wedding, all the prominent figures had basically arrived. Kevin didn't have an invitation and was naturally stopped by the waiter at the door. William, dressed in a black suit with a red flower pinned to his chest, glanced at him expressionlessly. Let him in. Kevin sat down in a corner with a mocking look in his eyes, saying nothing. This wedding was extravagant, the scent of money evident everywhere. On the big screen, the wedding photos of the bride and groom were displayed. A perfect match, both talented and beautiful. Kevin stood in front of me, blocking my view. What's so great about those two? Jessica, don't dirty your eyes. I nodded and stopped looking at the big screen. Soon, the wedding began. William's tall figure stood on the stage, his eyes fixed on the entrance without blinking. There, his bride would soon appear. This scene I had anticipated countless times finally appeared. However, the main character was not me. At the auspicious moment, Laura slowly walked towards William under the envious gazes of the crowd. Beside my ear, the officiant was reciting the vows. I looked at the person who once said he would marry me, and at this moment, his heart and eyes were filled with another woman. My eyes suddenly felt warm. I wanted to escape from here. Jessica, don't worry, it will be over soon, Kevin gently reassured me, as I felt confused. The groom's ID was delayed in coming out. Laura urged him anxiously, but William just stared at him with a heavy gaze. William, hurry up and say you do, everyone is watching. William smiled inscrutably, and under Laura's urging, he pronounced slowly, I do not. The crowd erupted in an uproar. I couldn't help but look up at the stage. The next moment, the door was suddenly pushed open, and several police officers rushed in. Kevin suddenly laughed and said, it seems someone hasn't sunk so low as to be beyond redemption. Jessica, the show is about to begin. I watched as Kevin pressed the button. The large screen that had displayed wedding photos now showed a surveillance video. One segment was of my car accident, and another was of Laura fleeing the Sue family's old house. I finally understood what Kevin meant by a grand gift. He was going to expose Laura's true colors today. The wedding, once filled with blessings, was now in chaos, filled with whispers. Laura was in a panic, seeking protection from William. But William merely pushed her away coldly, looking at her as if she were trash. Laura, do you think you can hide what you've done? You killed my mother, and you killed Jessica. You deserve to die. Laura screamed in despair, while William coldly watched her being taken away by the police. With the crimes exposed, this wedding had turned into a joke. Kevin, like a spectator, was ready to get up and leave after watching this farce. As we stepped out the door, a voice suddenly rang out. Kevin, give me back Jessica's ashes. Kevin and I both stopped in our tracks. William rushed in front of Kevin, his gaze icy. I checked the crematorium surveillance. It was you who took Jessica's ashes, Kevin. Give Jessica back to me. Kevin sneered, William, you were the one who trampled on her ashes, what right do you have to say give back? Kevin. William, I collected Jessica's ashes bit by bit. She was originally clean and pure, but because of you, she is now covered in dust. You have no right to take her away, and I will never hand her over to you. Just give up on that idea. The carriage was silent. When I looked at Kevin, our eyes met. He smiled and said, You're not blaming me for keeping your ashes, are you? I shook my head, how could that be? I was still grateful to him. He then asked, Have you thought about where to be buried? Is it back home or in the cemetery? His face seemed to be covered in a layer of gray, and I felt inexplicably sad. My hometown is also Kevin's hometown. But I didn't want to go back. After pondering for a while, I pointed to the bottle of mineral water. Kevin furrowed his brows, his voice sorrowful. Do you want me to scatter your ashes into the sea? I nodded. Kevin smiled, the corners of his eyes reddening. He nodded, all right, let's bury you in the sea, so that William can never find a place to pay his respects in this lifetime. We exchanged smiles. On the day Laura was sentenced, Kevin took me to the courthouse to observe. He said it would show me the fate that bad people deserve, so I could feel at ease. After not seeing her for a few days, the once glamorous Miss Sue now looked disheveled and despondent. It was as if she had gone through a torment. When questioned, she trembled all over, as if answering slowly would result in a steel rod coming down on her at any moment. I watched the entire process. From the confession to the death sentence, it was surprisingly smooth. However, as we were leaving the courtroom, Laura suddenly shouted in a certain direction. She desperately wanted to rush towards that place. William, help me, I don't want to die, I just love you too much. William, help me, help me. I looked to the corner and realized William had also arrived. He looked at Laura with a blank expression and said word by word, why didn't you save my mother when you saw her fall ill? When you hired someone to kill Jessica, did you ever think that she didn't want to die either? Laura, taking a life means paying with your own, how can you expect to live? Laura's excited expression fell away, and she said with pity, so, that wedding was all a lie? You lifted me to the heavens and then threw me down hard, just for revenge? William laughed cruelly. The expectation in Laura's eyes completely vanished, and she laughed maniacally, saying, ha ha ha, William, so what if you got your revenge? Jessica is never coming back, she's dead. By the way, I forgot to tell you, before she died, she was looking forward to telling you the truth, but unfortunately, a car accident took her away. And what were you doing at that time? William, you were in bed with another woman, ha ha ha. I suddenly felt nauseous, unable to stop retching. Yet, I couldn't bring anything up. Kevin wanted to pat my back to comfort me, but he could only watch helplessly as his hand passed through my body. He whispered, Jessica, he's not worth it. Yes, he's not worth it. Yet I dove in headfirst, sinking deeper and deeper. Seeing Laura's ending, I suddenly felt a lightness all over. After leaving the courthouse, Kevin suddenly stared at me without blinking, his eyes filled with pain and relief. His eyes were red, and his voice was tinged with tears. Jessica, I'll take you to see the ocean. I looked down at my feet, which had already become transparent. I smiled sadly and nodded. The car was moving fast, and the reflections outside the window rushed by in a blur. Kevin clenched his teeth, his sharp jawline taut. He was so nervous, his eyes fixed straight ahead. I wanted to tell him there was no need to drive so fast, I wasn't in a hurry. In the next moment, it was as if Kevin could hear my thoughts, and he slowed down the car. He smiled and said, we're almost there, Jessica. Are you scared? There was an emotion in his eyes that I couldn't understand. I shook my head, not scared. Kevin tugged at his lips and said with relief, it's good that you're not scared, Jessica. In the next life, don't treat yourself so poorly. I was taken aback, opened my mouth, and silently said, okay. The car stopped by the seaside. Kevin hesitated to get out. He gripped the steering wheel, his hands trembling. We all knew that once he got out, it would be the true farewell. I placed my hand over his, knowing he couldn't feel it, but I still wanted to do it. Kevin smiled slightly, let's get out. He took off the necklace around his neck. The chain held a glass bottle, inside which was my ashes. Kevin and I walked along the beach, one after the other. He had his hands in his pockets, a smile always lingering at the corner of his mouth. I watched as the transparent part grew larger, stopping by a rock. Is it here? I nodded. Yes, right here. Kevin opened the glass bottle and poured the meager ashes into his hand. Then he forcefully tossed them into the sea, He shouted, "Go, Jessica, you are free now." A gentle breeze blew, carrying my ashes deep into the sea. Kevin and I exchanged smiles. "Finally, I am free." "Kevin!" A furious voice rang out. William, with red eyes, stumbled towards me. "Kevin, give me back Jessica's ashes, I beg you, give her back to me." In the courtroom, I only caught a glimpse of William. Now that I was closer, I realized how haggard he looked. The dark circles under his eyes suggested he had pulled several all-nighters, and his eyes were bloodshot. His face was as pale as if he had just come out of the hospital. He choked out, "Kevin, did you scatter Jessica's ashes in the sea? Did you throw her away?" Kevin shadowed his fist towards William, darkly saying, "It was you who lost her, it was you, William. Aren't you supposed to marry Laura? Don't you hate Jessica? What are you pretending to be so sentimental about now?" William coughed up a mouthful of blood and shook his head, saying, "I don't want to marry Laura, I just want to annoy Jessica." "Annoy her?" "Huh, the president of Sue is truly creative in his ways of getting back at people, even going so far as to use a wedding to provoke his own wife." "William, you are truly disgusting." William was too weak to refute, or rather, he couldn't refute at all, because what Kevin said was the truth. Even if that wedding was ultimately just a revenge against Laura, he initially did have such thoughts. "If I hadn't died, I think I would have been heartbroken over that wedding." William lay helplessly on the beach, murmuring my name. I watched his increasingly transparent body, feeling a sense of relief in my heart. Kevin hit William twice more. Suddenly, he turned to look at me. That glance was filled with farewell and relief. I smiled, and Kevin smiled too. He laughed out loud. It caught William's attention. William followed his gaze to me, but he could see nothing. Suddenly, he pushed Kevin away and urgently questioned, "Have you seen Jessica? Where is she? Kevin, for God's sake, tell me, where is Jessica?" He searched around for me, but saw nothing. Kevin smiled dejectedly and said, "Yeah, I've seen her. Since the day you ran to my house looking for her, I've been able to see her. She's been right by your side, didn't you notice?" William was stunned. He stared blankly at Kevin. Kevin cruelly added, "She went to your wedding with Laura too. When you scattered her ashes, she saw it too. William, everything you did, Jessica saw it all." William seemed to be struck by some heavy blow, feeling utterly hopeless. "Where is she?" Kevin scoffed, raising his hand to point at me. "Right there, but she's about to disappear, William, you'll never see her again. By the way, Jessica left you a message. She said she hates you, she regrets knowing you." Kevin looked at me with regret in his eyes. I hadn't said those words, but I didn't blame him. I knew he just wanted to give me a sense of relief. I smiled and took a deep look at Kevin. That glance was a blessing for an old friend. "Kevin, I hope your later years will be peaceful and smooth. From this moment on, we part ways." In my last glance before disappearing, I saw William shouting my name, stumbling as he rushed towards the deep sea. Kevin sat on the beach, neither stopping nor saving. The entanglements between William and me dissipated as he sank to the bottom of the sea.